Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Israel offers ceasefire if half of hostages held are released, even as Hamas rejects additional demand to disarm. UN says humanitarian crisis in Gaza at its worst. US sets stage for imposing tariffs on pharmaceuticals and semiconductors as it announces national security investigations into their imports. Sudan faces the world's worst humanitarian crisis as the country marks second anniversary of the conflict. UK hosts a global conference with an aim of resolving it. Mark Zuckerberg testifies at a landmark US antitrust trial as Meta stands accused of unfair practices to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp. Case could see forced divestment of both the apps. In sports, world number 1 Magnus Carlsen beats Hikaru Nakamura to clinch the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. Gaza peace talks mediator Egypt said that it received an Israeli proposal for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza that would pave the way for negotiations towards a permanent cessation of hostilities. In its proposal, Israel offered a ceasefire of at least 45 days in exchange for the release of half of the remaining hostages held in the Palestinian territory and the entry of aid. The proposal also includes the disarmament of Hamas and all Palestinian armed factions in the Gaza Strip as a condition for permanent end to the conflict. Mediators Egypt and Qatar have presented the new Israeli proposal for the Gaza ceasefire to Hamas. Hamas leaders meanwhile said that they were reviewing the ceasefire proposal and would respond as soon as necessary internal consultations are completed. The group informed the mediators that it is willing to agree to any proposal that includes a permanent ceasefire, a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and the entry of aid. Hamas, however, had rejected any clauses that would see it forced to disarm. Hamas and the resistance faction's position is that the resistance weapons are a red line and non-negotiable. Hamas took 251 hostages during the October 7, 2023 attacks that in fact started the conflict. Some 58 are still held in Gaza, including 34 the Israeli military says are dead. French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday urged reform of the Palestinian Authority as part of a plan for the West Bank-based body to govern a post-conflict Gaza without Hamas. Macron called his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas on Monday after last week announcing that France could take unprecedented step of recognizing a Palestinian state in the coming months. This sparked ire from Israel. After the phone call, Macron on social media said that France is fully mobilized to obtain the return of all hostages, the return of a lasting ceasefire, and immediate access for humanitarian aid into Gaza. Macron has said that France could recognize a Palestinian state during a United Nations conference in New York in June. France is among European nations to have backed a plan for Gaza to return to the control of the Palestine-based authority after nearly 2 decades of Hamas rule if a ceasefire deal is reached to end the conflict with Israel. The United Nations on Monday said that Gaza was facing its most severe humanitarian crisis since the conflict began, with no aid entering the territory for weeks now. Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said that no supplies had reached Gaza for a month and a half since Israel ended a 2-month ceasefire and began blocking their delivery. The U.S. State Department has approved the potential sale of Eton Power Pack engines and related equipment to Israel for an estimated cost of $180 million. The principal contractor for the sale will be Rolls-Royce Solutions America. The Defense Security Cooperation Agency, in a statement, said the United States is committed to the security of Israel and it is vital to U.S. national interests to assist Israel to develop and maintain a strong and ready self-defense capability. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani in Qatar's capital. Qatar and Egypt agreed to work towards a package of $7.5 billion in direct Qatari investments. The two also discussed the situation in West Asia, stressing on the importance of working to cease the fighting in the enclave. Egypt is pushing ahead with efforts to secure funding from Gulf neighbors and foreign partners as it seeks to tackle heavy foreign debts and a gasping budget deficit. Last year, Egypt signed a deal with Abu Dhabi-based sovereign fund ADQ to develop a city at Ras Al Hekma on Egypt's north coast. The United States signaled a fresh escalation in its trade war on Monday, this time hinting at tariffs on semiconductors and imported pharmaceuticals, deepening global market jitters. President Donald Trump said that he expects to impose tariffs on foreign-made pharmaceuticals in the not-too-distant future, adding to the growing list of goods targeted in Washington's trade offensive. The move is likely to impact major global suppliers and further fuel economic uncertainty.
We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very simple. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
The U.S. Department of Education has frozen more than $2 billion in federal funding for Harvard University, just hours after the school rejected President Trump's demands that it make deep policy changes on diversity. The move marks a new level of contentiousness between President Trump's administration and American universities it accuses of being captured by the extreme left. Trump's administration has frozen hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding for numerous universities, pressing the institutions to make policy and other changes and citing what it says is a failure to fight anti-Semitism on campus. However, Harvard on Monday rejected Trump administration's demands that to receive federal funding, it end diversity efforts and take other steps that the university said would stifle intellectual freedom of faculty and students. To ease any funding crunch created by any cutoff in federal funding, Harvard is working to borrow $750 million from Wall Street. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed full support of Donald Trump's government for the economic reforms underway in Argentina in a meeting with its president, Javier Milei. At the government house in Buenos Aires, Bessent also praised Milei for his government's decision to reduce barriers to reciprocal trade with the U.S. Milei said that the Argentine government understands the U.S. reciprocal tariff proposal and is ready to sign a trade agreement. At the meeting, Bessent congratulated the government for the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. On April 11th, Argentina sealed an extended facilities program with the IMF for $20 billion in addition to loans with the World Bank and the IDB and announced the relaxation of exchange market controls. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday once again blamed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for Russia's invasion and accused him of responsibility for millions of deaths. During a meeting in the Oval Office with the president of El Salvador, Trump placed blame of the Russian-Ukraine conflict not just on Russian President Putin, but also on former U.S. President Joe Biden and Zelensky himself. He also claimed the Ukrainian leader is constantly seeking to purchase U.S. missiles, adding that he expects some good proposals on ending the conflict soon. Trump, however, insisted a deal to end the Ukraine conflict was possible.
That's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame. Looking to purchase missiles, you know. He's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles. All I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing, and I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
The United States and Ukraine reportedly held constructive talks last week in Washington over a proposed minerals deal aimed at giving the U.S. a share in Ukraine's lucrative rare mineral sector. A Ukrainian delegation traveled to Washington with the goal of pushing negotiations forward. Ukraine's Justice Minister Olga Stefashina called the consultations a positive sign in a TV appearance on Monday. The deal is reportedly being pushed by Donald Trump, who wants it to serve as compensation for the military and financial aid provided to Ukraine under former President Joe Biden. A series of explosions rocked the Russian city of Kursk near the Ukrainian border early on Tuesday, reportedly damaging residential buildings. According to local media, the blast sparked fire in a multi-storied residential building. The cause of the explosions remain unclear. China's President Xi Jinping called for stronger ties with Vietnam on trade and supply chains amid disruptions caused by U.S. tariffs. Xi Jinping attended the signing in Hanoi of dozens of cooperation agreements between the two communist-run nations. In Hanoi, Xi met with Communist Party General Secretary Tu Lam and Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. The two countries signed dozens of cooperation agreements, including deals on enhancing supply chains and on cooperation over railways. The visit, planned for weeks and part of a wider trip in Southeast Asia, comes as Beijing faces 145% U.S. duties, while Vietnam is negotiating a reduction of threatened U.S. tariffs of 46% that would otherwise apply in July after a global moratorium expires. The United Nations and rights groups have called for an end to the violence in Sudan as the second anniversary of the conflict looms, and the paramilitary rapid support forces has intensified attacks in Darfur, killing dozens of people in recent days. The United Nations said that more than 300 civilians have been killed in fighting on Friday and Saturday around Zamzam and Abu Shok displacement camps and the town of Al Fashar in North Darfur. Now, this includes 10 humanitarian personnel from Relief International who were killed while operating one of the last functioning health centers in Zamzam camp. Meanwhile, Britain said on Tuesday that it would provide $158 million more in aid to people in Sudan as it hosted a conference marking the 2-year anniversary of the conflict. Britain is co-hosting the London conference with the African Union, the European Union, France and Germany. Egypt, Kenya and the United Arab Emirates are among the other attendees. Britain said Tuesday's conference in London would be a chance to improve the coherence of the international response to the crisis, although Sudan criticized the fact that its government was not invited for the talks. UK's Foreign Minister David Lammy said that the conference will bring together the international community to agree a pathway to end the suffering. Lammy vowed, and I quote, "The UK will not let Sudan be forgotten," and I unquote, as he unveiled $158 million in new aid for the country. You're watching DD India News. We're waiting for a short break, but after the break, in spite of U.S. Supreme Court's ordering the return of the migrant wrongly deported, El Salvador president rules out his release. After the positive and constructive first round of indirect talks, U.S. and Iranian officials brace up for the second round in Rome on Saturday. The first all-female spaceflight in more than 60 years successfully returned to Earth aboard a Blue Origin rocket.
geopolitics and trade deals, economic challenges amid development, hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador said that he would not order the return to the United States of a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported. President Bukele made the comments during a meeting on Monday at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump, with whom he shares a strong relationship. Despite a court order instructing the U.S. to facilitate the man's return, senior White House officials said that it was up to Salvador to decide whether to do so or not. The Trump administration has been fighting for days against a judge's order to return a wrongfully deported Maryland man to the United States.
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him. He was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
U.S. President Donald Trump said that he wants to deport some violent criminals who are U.S. citizens to El Salvador, where they would be incarcerated under an agreement with that country's government. The remarks were one of the clearest signals yet that the U.S. president is serious about deporting naturalized and U.S.-born citizens, a proposal that has alarmed civil rights advocates and is viewed by many legal scholars as unconstitutional. Trump said that he would only go through with the idea if his administration determined it was legal.
Many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it.
A U.S. judge in Vermont ordered the Trump administration not to deport a Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist who was arrested upon arriving for an interview for his U.S. citizenship petition. District Judge William Sessions ordered President Trump and other senior officials not to remove student Mohsen Madwi from the United States or take him out of the state of Vermont. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials did not immediately respond to a request for information. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and others from Vermont's congressional delegation labeled the detention as immoral, inhumane and illegal, saying that the legal U.S. residents should be afforded due process and released immediately. The second round of talks between the United States and Iran on Tehran's nuclear program is expected to be held in Rome on Saturday. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani announced that Rome has agreed to host the meeting following requests from the negotiating parties and Oman, which is acting as a mediator. He announced this during a visit to Japan. The first round of indirect talks between U.S. and Iranian officials took place in Oman on April 12th. Both countries have said that they had held positive and constructive talks, although the negotiations remain indirect, with Oman acting as a mediator. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will travel to Russia this week for consultations regarding the nuclear talks with the U.S. Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that Araghchi would meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. US President Donald Trump claimed on Monday that Iran has been intentionally delaying a nuclear deal with the United States. Trump cautioned Tehran against a drive for a nuclear weapon, saying it may have to face a military strike if it did not desist from its activities. Trump said the Iranians need to move fast to avoid a harsh response because they're fairly close to developing a nuclear weapon.
I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us, I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said on Monday that a diplomatic agreement with Iran will depend on working out details around verification of the country's uranium enrichment and weapons program. Meta Platforms CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand on Monday at a high-stakes trial in Washington over U.S. antitrust enforcers' claims that the company spent billions of dollars to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp to fend off Facebook competitors. The looming antitrust trial will be the first big test of President Trump's Federal Trade Commission's ability to challenge big tech. Zuckerberg responded to questions while seeking to combat allegations that Meta bought the companies a decade ago to eliminate competition among social media platforms where users connect with friends and family. The FTC has pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed acquiring photo-sharing app Instagram as a way to neutralize a potential Facebook competitor and expressed worry that encrypted messaging service WhatsApp could grow into a social network. The trial could stretch into July. If the FTC wins, it would have to separately prove that measures such as forcing Meta to sell Instagram or WhatsApp would restore competition. All right, DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us. Akshay, we've just given a backgrounder to the antitrust trial faced by Mark Zuckerberg. In very simple layman's terms, explain to our viewers the case and also how severe or grave is it for Meta?
Well, Preeti, if you have to explain it to the viewer, perhaps we can put it in a way that Facebook, that was in fact a giant social networking website, even when Instagram and WhatsApp were not at that level. Facebook realized the potential that Instagram and both WhatsApp could have as far as the future social networking sites are concerned. Instagram was later bought by Facebook, so was WhatsApp. And before that, they were individual social media networks that were nascent in their ages. So according to this case, Facebook is alleged to use its own money and the position that it had as far as being a major social media network is concerned to put billions and billions of dollars to eliminate any kind of competition. And it invested in social medias such as Instagram and WhatsApp. And then later integrated all of them into Meta, one network for all of these social medias, which are owned by one company, Meta, that can where a user can in fact move from one social media to another without needing to get out of the social media network. For example, if you are using Instagram, and if you want to post it on Facebook, you can do it directly through Instagram because the parent company is all the same, Meta, and it's considered to be part of one larger network, one larger social media, and that has been the vision of Mark Zuckerberg as well. However, the Antitrust Commission's case against Zuckerberg says that these social media could have prospered into their own kind of social media networks. However, they have all been forced into one same vessel of Facebook, and then have been given different tasks as far as a larger Facebook or larger Meta is concerned, and that's why the growth has been scuttled, and any kind of potential growth of these social media networks on its own independently, if it would have been owned by somebody else, it had Zuckerberg not paved its way through sheer money power and muscle power. So it would have led to competition amongst social medias, but now it's sort of monopolizing the entire game of social media, and that perhaps is the reason why Zuckerberg faces this trial. The second question that you asked about what can be the consequences, so what we are hearing is that both WhatsApp and Instagram can be broken off from Facebook, which means taken away, and Zuckerberg may indicate sources that Zuckerberg may be forced to, in fact, even consider selling these social media networks so that competition can once again grow in the market. Now, US being a capitalistic market has been always a promoter of competition, healthy competition. But if you see social media right now, there are hardly any competition. See that Google that has YouTube, that has other several social media platforms. Then there is Meta that has Facebook, that has Instagram. You also have WhatsApp, some of the most important social media websites. So there's no competition as such, and that perhaps is the reason why there have been claims that were raised that both Meta and Google are monopolizing the entire situation, and that has given control of such a powerful tool such as social media into hands of very few people. Back to you.
All right, Akshay, now the US tariffs announced by Donald Trump did send shockwaves across the world. And now we see, the Donald Trump administration's, through this antitrust trial, we see Donald Trump's administration against the big tech of the country. How do you see this further play out?
Well, it's more of optics taking a stand against the big tech, because we all realize how important big tech is. But certainly it's a shake-up, yes, truly after tariffs, and now you have this kind of antitrust case once again being raised against Facebook. So, for example, this is not the first time. Meta has faced several cases in the past as well, as far as Facebook's origin and partnerships are concerned. So, this is going to be a shake-up in many ways. Back to you.
All right, Akshay, thank you for joining in with those details. All right, turning focus to other updates, Hungary's parliament has approved constitutional changes on Monday, which will limit the rights of LGBTQ+ people and dual nationals. The constitutional amendments were easily passed due to the ruling party Fidesz's 2/3 majority and with the support of far-right lawmakers. The amendment passed with 140 members voting for and 21 against it, and it emphasizes the protection of children's physical and moral development over all other rights. The changes also enshrine in the constitution that Hungary recognizes only two sexes, male and female, in line with Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Christian conservative agenda. Monday's amendment underpins legislation passed on March 18 that bans the annual Pride March, effectively restricting freedom of assembly and triggering protests against the changes of fast-tracked by Orban's party. Somalia's Darwish Police Forces, a specialized unit of the Somali Police Force, graduated from a European Union-supported training program as the country strengthens efforts to secure regions recently retaken from the Islamist militants. The graduation ceremony, held at the EU compound in Mogadishu, marked the completion of the training of first batch of 100 officers out of a planned 7,500. The initiative is part of a broader effort to bolster local security in territories where Somalis and allied forces have pushed back militants in recent months. American pop star Katy Perry and 5 other women floated in space and successfully returned to Earth on Monday aboard a Blue Origin rocket, marking the first all-female space flight in more than 60 years. The 6 female crew members also included Lauren Sanchez, Yale King, former NASA rocket scientist Aisha Bowe, scientist Amanda Guin, and film producer Karen Phelan. The crew lifted off from West Texas and traveled to the edge of space, where they experienced a brief period of weightlessness before returning to Earth in a flight lasting around 11 minutes. The space flight was a success for Bezos' new Shepard launch vehicle, which has been developed for space tourism. Officials say that the potential passengers have to pay over $150,000 to experience the journey to space.
1, 2, 3, take us space! It's okay.
A sandstorm in central and southern Iraq sent more than 1,000 people to hospitals with respiratory problems on Monday. More than 250 people were taken to hospital in Najaf province, while at least 322 patients, including children, were sent to hospitals in Diwania province. A further 530 people reported breathing issues in Dhikar and Basra provinces. The sandstorm blanketed Iraq's southern provinces in an orange cloud that reduced visibility to less than 1 kilometer. Authorities temporarily shut the airports in southern provinces of Najaf and Basra as the sandstorm, the biggest this year, obscured visibility in an eerie orange cloud. The dust storms are common in Iraq, but some experts believe they are becoming more frequent due to climate change. You're watching DD India News. I'll be heading for a short break, but after the break, India and Uzbekistan kick off the 6th edition of joint military exercise Dathlik in Pune to bolster bilateral defense ties. Celebrating father of the nation Mahatma Gandhi's legacy of peace, South Africa installs Mahatma Gandhi's bust at the War Museum in Bloemfontein. Stay with us for a vibrant report on the festival of Bihu that marks the Assamese New Year and the arrival of spring. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. Israel offers ceasefire if half of the hostages held are released, even as Hamas rejects additional demand to disarm. UN says humanitarian crisis in Gaza at its worst. US sets stage for imposing tariffs on pharmaceuticals and semiconductors as it announces national security investigations into their imports. Sudan faces the world's worst humanitarian crisis as the country marks second anniversary of the conflict. UK hosts global conference with an aim of resolving it. Mark Zuckerberg testifies at a landmark US antitrust trial as Meta stands accused of unfair practices to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp. Case could see forced divestment of both the apps. In sports, world number 1 Magnus Carlsen beats Hikaru Nakamura to clinch the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. India and South Africa honoured their shared history at the War Museum in Bloemfontein with a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi and the launch of a new documentary. Consulate General of India, Durban, with India's High Commissioner Shri Prabhat Kumar and Free State MEC Moses Ketsu Mokame unveiled the Gandhi bust, celebrating his legacy of peace and the role of Indian communities in the South African War of 1899 to 1902. The museum, dedicated to inclusive remembrance of the conflict, hosted a commemorative event which marked a meaningful step in deepening historical understanding and cultural appreciation between the two nations. DD India's correspondent Nazneen Ismail reports on this.
In a powerful celebration of shared heritage and enduring friendship, High Commissioner of India to South Africa, Shri Prabhat Kumar, joined MEC of Finance, Economic Development and Tourism in the Free State, Mr. Moses Ketso Makume, at the War Museum in Bloemfontein, where they unveiled a Gandhi bust and launched a poignant new book and documentary titled Caught in the Crossfire. The event paid tribute to Gandhi's legacy of peace and resilience and spotlighted the contributions of Indian communities during the South African Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902. The War Museum, which centers on the South African Anglo-Boer War, has long strived to honor the diverse groups affected by the conflict, including white, African, colored, and Indian communities. Since 2009, it has actively worked to acknowledge the contributions and sufferings of all racial groups during the war. As part of this ongoing effort, a commemorative event was held to reflect on the shared history and complex legacies of the war.
India's links with the struggle of freedom and justice in South Africa date back to the period during which Mahatma Gandhi started his Satyagraha movement in South Africa over a century ago. As it is said, while India gave Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to South Africa, South Africa gave Mahatma in return to India. As a leader of the Indian Ambulance Corps, Gandhiji, who was also a devout humanitarian, involved himself in the war to save precious life.
The evening also featured a captivating musical performance by Shadow and Light, who presented a selection of their original compositions.
The Indian story were never told in the world, and it's not just and fair. And you tell the story without sugarcoating. For nation building, for social cohesion, unique nation healing, and you must open the wounds of the past to get nation healing.
This is an important day for us because today we have unveiled the statue, the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in the War Museum in Bloemfontein. It is important because Mahatma Gandhi participated as an ambulance corps member, as a stretcher bearer in the Boer War, and showed the humanitarian angle of Mahatma Gandhi. And it is very well captured and also in the book that we unveiled today.
So in honoring the past, India and South Africa walk hand in hand toward a future enriched with shared history. I'm Nazneen for DD India, Bloemfontein, South Africa.
Aimed at strengthening bilateral military cooperation, the 6th edition of the joint military exercise Dust Lake between India and Uzbekistan to commence in Pune from 15 to 28th of April. This exercise will bring together contingents from the Indian Army and Uzbek Army to enhance collaboration and strengthen military ties. Exercise Dust Lake aims to enhance joint training and facilitate the exchange of best practices in counter-terrorism operations within the sub-conventional domain. This initiative seeks to enhance military cooperation and interoperability between the two armies. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued a number of weather advisories for the country, highlighting a combination of severe heat waves and heavy rainfall in different regions. From April to June this year, the IMD predicts above normal temperature in the majority parts of the country. There will be likely severe heat waves in areas like Delhi, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and portions of Karnataka. By mid-April, Delhi is expected to see temperatures as high as 40 degrees Celsius, breaking previous records. Contrasting the heatwave conditions, several states are under heavy rainfall and thunderstorm alerts. Bihar and Jharkhand are expected to experience significant rainfall, which could lead to localized flooding and disruptions. India, a land of diverse cultures and festivals, welcomes the vibrant celebration of Bihu, a festival that marks the Assamese New Year and the arrival of spring. Our next report takes you to Assam, where communities come alive in color, music and joy. Take a look.
Traditional beats echo through the air and the scent of fresh blossoms fills the atmosphere as it's time for Bihu, Assam's most cherished festival. Celebrated in mid-April, Rongali Bihu, also known as Bohag Bihu, marks the beginning of the Assamese New Year. It is a celebration of life, love, harvest and harmony with nature. People across Assam wear traditional attires, the graceful Mekhela Chador for women and Dhoti Gamcha for men, and come together to perform the iconic Bihu dance, accompanied by the rhythmic tunes of Dhol, Pepa and Gogana. Bihu celebrations are marked by grand community gatherings, cultural showcases and traditional featuring delicacies like pitha, laru and doi sira. The spirit of unity and tradition is at its peak as the festival brings together people across castes and communities to celebrate the joys of rural life, gratitude for nature and the bonds of togetherness. as Assam welcomes the new year with joy and pride. Bihu continues to stand as a symbol of resilience, cultural richness, and the Assamese way of life. From rhythmic steps to heartfelt songs, Bihu encapsulates the essence of Assam's soul. Kriti Vadhera's report for DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. A fire that broke out at Lok Bandhu Hospital in Lucknow has been doused and several patients were safely relocated to nearby hospitals, including Civil Hospital, where they are now under medical care. Officials confirm that 5 of the patients are in stable condition. Security forces are conducting a large-scale search operation in Lasana village after a terrorist attack that injured a soldier. The operation involves deploying a dog squad to locate and neutralize the terrorists, with additional forces being deployed to the area. The search is ongoing and authorities are working to secure the area and prevent further attacks. Ex-serviceman Jatinder Singh returns to strawberry cultivation under a scheme sponsored by the central government in Dera village in Jammu and Kashmir. The scheme aims to promote high-value horticulture and double farmers' incomes. His venture has not only brought him financial stability, but also inspired fellow villagers to explore similar avenues. A Rajnikant fan, Karthik from Madurai, celebrated Tamil Nadu year in a unique way by honouring the superstar at a temple he built within his residence. The temple, which was inaugurated a few months ago, features a 300 kg idol of the actor and stands as a testament to Karthik's devotion. A short break ahead. You're watching DD India News Hour, but after the break, aiming to insulate the economy against US tariffs, South Korea aims an additional $4.9 billion in the country's semiconductor industry. Olympic torch unveiled in Osaka for Milano Cortina 2026 Winter Games. Elephants at San Diego Zoo sense earthquake. What they do next is incredible.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. South Korea on Tuesday announced plans to invest an additional $4.9 billion in the country's semiconductor industry, citing growing uncertainty over the US tariffs. South Korea's finance ministry said that growing uncertainty following rounds of US tariff threats had left the powerful industry clamoring for government support. The finance ministry in a press release said that the country's chip support package would be increased by $4.9 billion. As part of the measures, the government will subsidize the construction of underground power transmission lines to semiconductor clusters, as well as increase the funding ratio for infrastructure in advanced industrial complexes to 50% from 30%. A total of 20 trillion won of low-interest loans to semiconductor companies will be offered between 2025 and 2027, up from the current 17 trillion won. Now, this comes after US President Donald Trump reportedly said that he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors soon after exempting them from his steep reciprocal tariffs last Friday. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Monday that trade talks with South Korea will take place next week. In an interview to U.S. media portal, Bessent touched upon plans for upcoming negotiations with Korea and Japan. Bessent said that the U.S. will engage in trade negotiations with South Korea next week, stressing on the first mover advantage as countries are striving to strike deals with the U.S. to minimize the impact of President Trump's tariff policy on their economies. Meanwhile, Japan's government is preparing for negotiations with the United States on its tariff measures. Japanese Economic Revitalization Minister Akazawa Ryozi, in charge of the tariff talks, will visit the US on Wednesday to launch the negotiations. Trump earlier this month imposed steep reciprocal tariffs on the two allies and dozens of other countries, but later placed a 90-day pause on the new tariffs. Taiwan's economy minister said on Tuesday that the island will simulate the impact of any US tariffs on the semiconductor industry. Speaking to reporters outside Parliament, Taiwan economy minister Ko Jae-ho said that he would seek to discuss the matter with the United States and ensure fair competition for Taiwanese industry. He further said that the Taiwanese and US chip sectors are complementary. Taiwan is home to TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker and a major supplier to companies including US tech giants Apple and Nvidia. The Trump administration is probing the import of chips along with pharmaceuticals in a bid to impose tariffs on both grounds. That extensive reliance on foreign production of semiconductors and medicine is a national security threat. All right, getting you the market action now. Asia shares edged slightly higher on Tuesday, helped by gains in auto companies after US President Donald Trump suggested that he might grant exemptions on auto-related levies already in place. Japan's Nikkei rose by 1%, with shares of MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan went up 0.3%. Oil prices rose, boosted by latest tariff exemptions floated by Trump. Brent crude gained 0.2%, while US crude was up 0.24%. Gold prices remained close to record highs, trading at $3,221.45 US an ounce as investors continue to seek safety amid global economic uncertainty and geopolitical tensions. Meta will train its artificial intelligence models with its European users, public content and conversations with the Meta AI chatbot. Now, the decision represents a major volte-face from the Facebook and Instagram owner, which has previously appeared wary of European Union's stringent regulations on the use of personal data. People based in the EU who use Meta platforms can opt out of having their data used for generative AI training purposes, the social networking giant said. That means everything from Instagram photo captions to Facebook comments could soon be fair games for Meta AI, which Mark Zuckerberg-owned company hopes will overtake market leader ChatGPT. And from business, we now turn focus to sports. We'll talk of chess. World number one Magnus Carlsen clinched the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam on Monday night after seeing off Hikaru Nakamura. Carlsen defeated his American opponent Nakamura 1.5 to 0.5 in the final after winning the first game and drawing the second to claim the title without needing a tiebreak. Along with the title, Carlsen took home the $200,000 first prize, reinforcing his supremacy in this new hybrid format that combines creativity with classical rigor. Meanwhile, Fabiano Caruana edged out Vincent Kemmer in the third place playoff after winning the match by 1.5 to 0.5. With this win, Caruana has booked his spot in the Las Vegas Grand Slam this July. The torches that will carry the Olympic flame for the 2026 Winter Games and Paralympics were unveiled in a dual event in Milan and Osaka on Monday. Made from recycled aluminium, the torches have been styled in two different versions, blue-colored for the Olympics and bronze for the Paralympics. Former cross-country skier Stefania and Paralympic fencing star Beeb Veo unveiled the torches in a theatre in Milan. Milan and the town of Cortina d'Ampezzo are the main hosts of the Games, which will run from 6 to 22nd of February in 2026. In cricket, MS Dhoni smashed 26 off just 11 balls, taking Chennai Super Kings to a dramatic last-over victory over Lucknow Super Giants in their IPL 2025 clash. The legendary Chennai captain led from the front as his team ended a 5-match losing streak in this season's IPL. Walking into bat with 56 needed off 30 balls, Dhoni's knock together with Shivam Dube's 43 ensured that Chennai clinched their second win of IPL 2025. Batting first, Lucknow captain Rishabh Pant top scored with 63, helping his side reach a total of 166 for 7 in 20 overs. Meanwhile, in their run chase, IPL debutant Shaikh Rashid gave Chennai a flying start, but they lost their way in the middle overs. India's Manika Batra and Srija Akula made a winning start to their Table Tennis World Cup campaign in Macau on Monday. Drawn in Group 16 of the women's singles, Batra had a comfortable start as she beat Juliette Melis of France 4-0 in just 18 minutes. Batra was dominating throughout, winning the match in straight games. Meanwhile, Akula got the better of Konstantina C. Hogois 3-1 in the women's singles Group 9. Manika and Srija are the only two Indian women in the tournament. No Indian male paddler has qualified. India wrapped up their campaign at the Archery World Cup in the United States with 4 medals, including a silver and a bronze from Dheeraj Boma Devara in the men's individual recurve event. The Indian men's recurve team, featuring Olympians Dheeraj Boma Devara, Tarundeep Rai and Atanu Das, went down 1-5 to China in the final. Later in the day, Boma Devara beat Andres Temeano of Spain 6-4 to win the bronze medal. Earlier, Rishabh Yadav and Jyoti Vinam secured the gold, while Rishabh, Abhishek Verma and Ojas Deotale won a bronze in the men's compound team event. India finished 4th on the medals tally. Mexico topped the standings with 6 medals. All right, changing track from sports now. Elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park instinctively formed a protective circle around their young during a 5.2 magnitude earthquake that struck San Diego County on Monday, showcasing a natural behavior known as alert circle intended to shield the most vulnerable members of the herd from perceived threats. All right, with that, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at In Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.